I'm here to tell my truth and make a shit ton of money out of podcasting as I don't have any discernible talent.
This might be the smallest palace I've ever been in.
How do you stay at the top of the middle of your game?
Well, Pads, an early start's important, so my butler Perkins gets up at 5 a.m. and does a 10k for me.
Ooh, remind me to tell them the story about when I bought milk.
I think you just told it.
How do you stay at the top of the middle of your game?
Well, Pads, an early start's important, so my butler Perkins gets up at 5 a.m. and does a 10k for me.
What happened to your ring?
I gave it to the working people.
We're the working people.
Nutrition is important, so Perkins makes me a bacon sandwich in case Megs has made another one of her rank smoothies.
Wow, Harry, people don't know how tough you got.
Why did you bring that with you again, Harry?
You know, in case someone wants a massage, I'll do a few out calls.
What about television? Do you have a Netflix account?
Yeah, it's got about $9 million in it.
It started as a blurry screenshot, grainy dim, the kind of thing you'd scroll right past if it weren't for one tiny unmistakable detail. A crown tilted just so, a glint of salmon pink in the corner, and a figure frozen mid-gesture in a pose that the internet had already immortalized from last year's South Park Worldwide Privacy Tour episode. Within minutes, the freeze frame was everywhere. Twitter threads, TikTok loops, Discord servers dedicated to cartoon leaks. But here's the thing, it wasn't just one frame. By midnight, fans had unearthed a second leak. This time, not a still image, but a few seconds of rough animatic, crude line art, placeholder voices, timing marks in the corners, and a watermark that didn't match the first. The first clip carried what self-proclaimed sleuths swore was South Park's internal screening room tag. The second, a completely different code, one that diehard animation watchers claimed matched Family Guy's table-read cue sheets. Two styles, two networks, two separate roast jobs barreling toward the same couple.
It has been several months now since our beloved queen has died. Our Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the prince and his wife.
In the South Park snippet, if it's even real, the scene is unmistakable for anyone following the couple's post-royal narrative. A cartoon yacht bobbing in exaggerated waves, a little lifeboat bobbing behind it with "as ever" scrawled across the side in swoopy script. On deck, a character with bright orange hair clutches a trolley stacked high with pink bottles chasing after a moving spotlight that never quite lands on them. It's unsubtle, it's on brand, and it's exactly the kind of visual that gets replayed until it's burned into the public imagination. The alleged Family Guy material is rougher, nothing more than a black and white storyboard with quick captions. But in one panel, Peter's kitchen counter holds a Prince of Wine mug. Another shows a wall-mounted Royal Regretto-meter with a needle swinging deep into the red. And there's an unmistakable Oprah couch silhouette tucked in the corner of one scene, just enough for fans to start speculating how deep the cutaway will go. Almost instantly, the leaks were treated like treasure maps. Twitter users layered the two clips side by side, slowing down transitions, pointing out visual Easter eggs, insisting these couldn't be coincidence. One show targeting them again? Sure, but two different shows apparently in production at the same time, with separate teams landing eerily similar digs. That's either fate or someone somewhere feeding the same fire. The couple's critics started talking about karma, their defenders screaming about obsession, but for the fandom that thrives on these animated takedowns, it wasn't about love or hate, it was about spectacle. The idea that both South Park and Family Guy might, within weeks of each other, drop back-to-back episodes that roast the same subjects was like dangling raw meat over a shark tank. And deep in the comment threads, one line kept showing up: if this is just what leaked, what didn't? But that was only the first ripple. If the first blurry screenshot was a spark, the alleged South Park animatic was the gasoline the moment it hit the web. Clipped from what looked like a studio computer screen, fans went into forensic mode. The clip opened with that now familiar wide shot of a coastline, animated in those jagged, almost carelessly charming lines that only South Park can get away with. But the water wasn't just any ocean. It was dotted with tiny cartoon yachts, and one in the foreground had a name scrawled across its side in curly, slightly smug lettering, "As ever."
We want privacy! We want privacy!
To the untrained eye, maybe it looked like a throwaway gag, but for anyone following the couple's post-royal ventures, that two-word brand name was a direct hit. It's the moniker Meghan slapped on her luxury product line, most famously, that pink rosé release that practically trended for all the wrong reasons. In the animatic though, the As Ever yacht wasn't sailing smoothly. It was tethered to a tiny rickety lifeboat, bobbing like it was just barely holding together. And in that lifeboat, a single character clutching a massive bottle of rosé like it was both a trophy and a life raft. The spotlight gag might be the most brutal part. The animatic shows this character, obviously modeled on Harry, trying to step onto the yacht's main deck. But every time he moves toward the light, the spotlight shifts, sliding just out of reach. He chases it across the deck, trips over the rosé cart, and gets caught in a loop of chasing, slipping and restarting. It's the kind of visual metaphor South Park has made a career out of, simple enough to understand instantly, layered enough to hit like a punchline and a diagnosis all at once. Then there's Meghan's stand-in, no mistaking her, The animatic has her lounging under an oversized sun hat, sunglasses so big they practically engulf her face, holding up a script labeled Privacy Tour Sequel. Every few seconds, she lowers the script to deliver an exaggerated, over-enunciated speech about setting boundaries, only to pause mid-sentence and shout for the yacht's camera crew to zoom in. At one point, a seagull swoops down and snatches the script from her hands, flying off toward the horizon. She shrieks, not in fear but in outrage, yelling, "That was my narrative!" before immediately ordering another rosé from the cart, Harry still chasing around. What really sent fans spinning, though, was the background detail. South Park loves to hide smaller jokes in the margins, and this alleged animatic was no exception. On the yacht side railing, a banner flaps in the wind with the words "spare parts" scribbled in bold letters, a cheeky nod to Harry's memoir, Spare.
Hey, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
Behind the couple, another yacht sails by carrying what looks suspiciously like animated versions of William and Kate, sipping tea and smirking wordlessly. The smirk in particular is a direct callback to the tiny royal lip curl we've talked about in earlier videos, the same one that's become a meme in its own right. The scene ends with the yacht hitting a sudden wave, sending both characters tumbling into the lifeboat. The rosé bottles crash into the water, bobbing like pink buoys, as the couple tries to scoop them back in with fishing nets. The spotlight, still dancing just out of reach. Fade to black. End scene. If this animatic is real, and again we have to stress it's all alleged, it's the kind of opener that doesn't just poke fun, it drags every meme, every rumor, every self-inflicted PR wound into one savage set piece, and the fans know it. The reactions ranged from gleeful anticipation to outright disbelief that they'd go this hard this soon after the first roast. But whether you're a supporter or a critic, you can't deny the craftsmanship of the satire. And the real kicker, this is supposedly just the cold open, which begs the question, if the yacht scene is the warm-up, what does the rest of the episode have waiting in the wings? But South Park wasn't the only one sharpening its knives. If South Park's leaked animatic was a sledgehammer, the alleged Family Guy call sheet was more like a scalpel, small, precise, and every bit as cutting. The document first appeared on a fan-run Facebook group known for trading animation industry gossip. At first glance, it looked unremarkable, just a standard production sheet with scene numbers, brief descriptions, and background gag notes. But the subject matter? That's what had people zooming in, screenshotting, and sharing like wildfire. The heading allegedly read, Episode XX, Royal Pain in the... The ellipsis was right there in the title, almost like the team was daring people to fill in the blank. Under Cutaway 1, the description was brief but brutal. Peter introduces his new Royal Regretometer, a wall-mounted gauge that tracks the number of times you wish you hadn't quit your job for a tell-all memoir. The needle.
So let me start with you, sir. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Where?
According to the note, was to start in the red and tremble violently every time someone says Netflix. The second cutaway in the leak sheet allegedly jumped to an animated Oprah couch flashback. No direct names were used, but the description called for a couple in California-colored clothes, with one character clutching a massive rolled-up script labeled Privacy Contract, while the other flips through a book titled How to Win Friends and Influence Streaming Algorithms. The visual alone, even in black and white storyboard form, had people howling. Then came the Prince of Wine gag, a background detail that according to the notes should appear in multiple scenes. The call sheet specified it as a novelty coffee mug sitting on Peter's kitchen counter, next to a jar labeled World's Saddest Jam. Fans immediately connected the dots to two of the couple's most mocked ventures, the memoir Spare and Meghan's small batch jam release that the internet turned into a running punchline months ago. But the most elaborate set piece on the list was something labeled Throne of Mics. This was marked as a background gag for a living room scene in which Stewie delivers a monologue about public speaking tips. The throne, according to the call sheet, was to be made entirely of broken podcast microphones, cracked earbuds, and empty tea mugs, an unmistakable nod to the couple's short-lived Spotify deal and their high-profile podcast collapse. Allegedly, there was even a visual tag called Timeline Regret Device, with instructions for Brian to be operating a remote control that cycles through various alternate timelines in which the couple made wildly different life choices. One example described in the notes, both characters as cheerful shop owners in a sleepy English village, waving to customers instead of waving to Netflix cameras. Another, the couple still in the palace, silently sipping tea while tabloids print glowing headlines. The implication was clear. Family Guy planned to frame the couple's post-royal life as one long what-if scenario. What struck fans most about this leak wasn't just the cruelty of the jokes, it was how specific they were. These weren't generic royal references, they were laser-focused on the couple's most memeable missteps, the contradictory calls for privacy, the product launches, the streaming deals, the public feuds.
Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I
I
are...
was totally like, you should write a book because your family like stupid and then so are like journalists.
If true, It suggested that Family Guy, much like South Park, wasn't just parodying the couple in a vacuum, it was mining the very same cultural moments that have been circulating in memes and gossip columns for years. The conversation online quickly turned to timing. If South Park's roast was imminent, could Family Guy be holding theirs until the dust settled, or were they planning a 1-2 punch that would leave the couple scrambling? Fans speculated that the call sheet might even have been accidentally leaked to build hype, the way Hollywood sometimes lets a teaser slip just enough to start a feeding frenzy. And while the Family Guy creators stayed publicly silent, that only made the speculation grow louder. In an entertainment landscape where leaks often precede announcements, many started treating this call sheet not as a question mark but as a countdown. But as the internet debated the how and the when, another piece of the puzzle was falling into place. By the time both alleged leaks had made their rounds, South Park's yacht and rosé spectacle, and Family Guy's razor-sharp cutaways, the conversation shifted from what to when. Timing was everything, and if you believed the latest whispers floating through fan forums, Discord servers, and entertainment subreddits, the answer was simple: very soon. The first trail of clues came from South Park watchers who obsess over Comedy Central's seasonal scheduling. They pointed to a small gap late in the season's release calendar, just big enough to drop a surprise episode without throwing off the rest of the run. One fan even posted a screenshot from the network's official site, highlighting a vague special episode placeholder. No title, no description, just a runtime and a broadcast date that conveniently sat 2 weeks from now. The theory caught fire. This was the Meghan and Harry sequel slot. Meanwhile, the Family Guy crowd was tracing a completely different set of breadcrumbs. The alleged call sheet that surfaced earlier was dated, and if the production timeline estimates were even close to accurate, that episode could be ready to air in less than a month. Add to that a leaked snippet from a post-production schedule someone claimed to have spotted on a shared workspace, and suddenly there was a working theory that Family Guy's roast might actually land before South Park's. The reasoning: strike first, claim the biggest wave of attention, and let South Park clean up with the encore.
So you hate journalists? That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist.
Industry insiders, always careful to hedge their bets, began dropping vague hints to the press. One entertainment blogger wrote that 2 unrelated animation teams are circling similar subject matter this quarter, while another claimed we could be watching a race to air. That phrasing alone was enough to kick the rumor mill into overdrive. If the shows were truly unrelated in their production cycles, this wasn't a coordinated hit. It was a coincidence that could play out like an accidental comedy arms race. Behind the scenes, sources close to the couple allegedly said their team was bracing for impact, drafting not 1 but 2 sets of statements. One dignified and disappointed version that could be rolled out if the jokes stayed in the safe zone, and one short, almost icy no comment designed to shut down any further questions. The challenge, according to those same whispers, was deciding which to use without seeing the final edits. And with both shows holding their material under lock and key until air date, that decision would have to be made blind. What added another twist was the difference in tone between the 2 leaks. South Park's yacht scene was pure spectacle, broad strokes, slapstick timing, layers of visual humor that could be caught on the 10th rewatch. Family Guy's alleged material, on the other hand, was surgical, background gags, targeted callbacks, and a thread of what-if scenarios that could sting in ways a big cartoon pratfall never could. Air them back to back and you'd have an onslaught, space them out and each would get its own viral moment. Fans began creating side-by-side drop window graphics, speculating on the potential fallout. One popular version labeled the days between as the panic gap, a stretch where the couple would be left wondering if the second show would go further than the first. It became a meme in itself, with people photoshopping Meghan and Harry into scenes of classic disaster films, staring at calendars as dramatic music played. Whether either show was actually timing its release to counter or outshine the other was anyone's guess. But for the internet, the idea of these 2 animated juggernauts taking turns landing blows was too delicious to ignore. It wasn't just about roasting anymore, it was about watching the roast evolve in real time. And in Montecito, that evolving timeline was triggering more than just curiosity. It was setting off alarms. By the time the panic gap meme had taken over Twitter feeds, the mood inside Montecito was anything but amused.
We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard.
Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines?
According to sources close to the couple, people who've seen how these things play out behind closed doors, this wasn't a matter of if they would respond, it was a matter of how and when. And in that world, timing can be the difference between looking dignified and looking defensive. The Archwell offices, usually calm and manicured for press days, reportedly felt more like a campaign war room. Phones were buzzing non-stop. Screens showed open tabs for media monitoring dashboards. On one wall, a calendar had been covered with color-coded post-it notes, each one marking a critical date pulled from either alleged leak timelines or key brand obligations. In the red column, the rumored South Park slot and the estimated Family Guy air date. In yellow, upcoming product pushes, charity appearances, and one quietly scheduled high-profile dinner that insiders feared could turn into a media scrum if the roast coverage snowballed. 2 draft statements were said to be in circulation. The first, polished and PR approved, read like a masterclass in dignified disappointment, acknowledging the hurtful nature of the portrayals, reaffirming their commitment to causes larger than themselves, and refusing to engage in a cycle of negativity. The second was far shorter. 2 sentences max, the kind of terse, clipped response that shuts down questions but does nothing to warm public sentiment. According to whispers, Meghan favored the first, Harry leaned toward the second. Parallel to the PR drafting was the legal track. Their lawyers were allegedly tasked with doing a quick sweep on parody boundaries, fair use case law, and potential oversteps if either show strayed into dangerous territory. Not to stop the episodes because parody protections in the US are notoriously strong, but to be ready with a rebuttal if a particular scene crossed a line. As one insider put it, this isn't about preventing the blow, it's about being ready to counterpunch if they hit somewhere they shouldn't. But there was a deeper, quieter worry threading through those conversations, the brand ripple effect. Their luxury partners weren't going to cancel contracts over a cartoon, but they might start making adjustments, postponing product launches, downshifting promotional pushes, or in the most cautious cases, inserting distance clauses to keep their logos from appearing alongside the couples in the press during a volatile week. A boutique rosé campaign that had been lined up for mid-spring was already allegedly put on a soft pause. No cancellation, just a quiet step back to be revisited after the noise settles.
What are you suggesting? Well, I just think some people might say that your Instagram-loving wife actually doesn't want her privacy.
Inside that Montecito bubble, it wasn't just about whether the jokes landed, it was about whether they would stick. Satire, once it catches the public imagination, can define how a brand is seen far longer than any press release or carefully staged photo shoot. And with 2 heavy-hitting animated shows circling at once, the couple's PR machine wasn't just bracing for a hit, it was bracing for an echo. By the end of the week, the post-it notes on that wall weren't just marking airdate guesses, they'd been rearranged into a running countdown. Not an official one, not something for public eyes, but enough for everyone in that office to glance up and feel the clock ticking. And across the Atlantic, the reaction was entirely different. Calmer, colder, and maybe even a little amused. While Montecito buzzed like a hive under siege, the mood across the pond could not have been more different. Inside palace walls, there was no frantic calendar, no drafts of statements, no calls to network lawyers. Instead, there was nothing, and that nothing was intentional. Royal watchers know the pattern by now. When the firm chooses silence, it is not out of oversight. It is a strategy, an old, well-practiced one, that relies on the belief that storms pass faster when you do not give them oxygen. According to whispers from staff corridors, no official briefings were given, no talking points circulated. The couple's names simply did not come up in the daily comms meetings. That absence in itself spoke volumes. One aide, speaking off-record to a well-connected royal journalist, described the atmosphere as cool distance. It wasn't malice. Exactly. It was the quiet confidence of people who knew they didn't need to get involved. The culture was already doing the work for them. Every leak, every meme, every think piece dissecting South Park's yacht gag or Family Guy's Prince of Wine cutaway was reinforcing an image the palace had no interest in correcting. And then there was the smirk. You know the one, the barely there lip curl from William that has become a meme in its own right. That same micro-expression popped back up in old footage making the rounds again, stitched into TikToks alongside shots of animated yachts and cartoon coffee mugs. The clips racked up millions of views in days. None of it was new, but in this context, it felt freshly sharpened, a silent, almost cheeky nod to the idea that some people don't need to speak to be heard. Rota reporters noticed too. While they kept their headlines focused on official engagements and public duties, some could not resist subtle asides in their copy phrases, like a well-timed smile or a moment of quiet amusement that let readers connect the dots without saying anything outright. It was a masterclass in subtext, the kind that drives speculation without ever crossing into confirmation. Even among junior palace staff, the mood was lighter. WhatsApp groups, according to one insider, lit up with memes lifted straight from the alleged leaks. Screenshots of the timeline regret device from the Family Guy call sheet sat next to GIFs of South Park's animated lifeboat bobbing in the waves. The humor was private, shared behind closed doors, but it was there. And while Montecito's PR operation weighed every syllable of a possible statement, the palace approach was simple: do nothing. No rebuttals, no acknowledgements, not even the faintest suggestion that these animated roasts warranted a flicker of official attention.
And you know what else? To hell with Canada! We are leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people! Come on, wife!
By withholding any reaction, they were playing the longest game of all, letting public perception run its course without giving the couple a fresh angle to claim victimhood. If the strategy was working, it was because it was invisible. And if it was invisible, it was because it was deliberate. The palace didn't need to rush to the battlefield when the fight was already being won in the court of public opinion without them lifting a finger. But not everyone was content to stay silent. Some of the sharpest jabs were starting to come from the creators themselves, though always in that playful, deniable way that keeps the mystery alive. If the leaks had the fandom buzzing, the creators' offhand remarks were like throwing lit matches into a field of dry grass. It started at a mid-tier animation festival panel, one of those events that usually flies under the mainstream radar. Trey Parker was on stage for a Q&A about the creative process, fielding the usual questions about character arcs and satire's role in modern comedy. Then someone in the audience brought up last year's Worldwide Privacy Tour episode. The room chuckled. Trey smirked, paused just long enough to make the silence feel loaded, and then said, "Wait till you see what didn't leak." No elaboration, no winks, no nudges, just that one sentence. But for the internet, it was more than enough. Within hours, the clip was clipped, captioned, and circulating on TikTok with dramatic zooms and flashing text. South Park fans took it as confirmation that the alleged yacht and rosé animatic was just the tip of the iceberg. That if this was the cold open, the rest of the episode must be even sharper, maybe even riskier. Not to be outdone, a few days later, a Family Guy producer appeared on a podcast hosted by two former writers. Midway through a discussion about balancing edgy humor with network standards, he joked, "We've been getting our cutaway cardio in this season. You'll see." The phrase cutaway cardio became an instant inside joke online. In the context of the alleged leak, fans interpreted it as a sly nod to the rumored timeline regret device and the multiple royal-themed cutaways supposedly crammed into a single upcoming episode. Both comments could easily be brushed off as harmless banter. No specific names were mentioned, no direct confirmation given. But in fandom spaces, plausible deniability is half the fun. People want to feel like they're reading between the lines, catching something they weren't supposed to. And both remarks landed squarely in that sweet spot. Entertainment bloggers jumped on it too. One outlet ran the headline, "Trey Parker teases unseen roast?" Family Guy producer fuels speculation, framing both soundbites as part of a broader wave of pre-release hype.
We can be the people we talked about being, with no more worries about how we look or the image we project to people. What matters is what we have on the inside.
On Reddit, threads with titles like "The Creators Know We Know" racked up hundreds of comments dissecting every syllable, tone shift, and facial expression. Even the absence of further detail was treated as a strategy, like the shows were deliberately feeding just enough to keep anticipation boiling without giving anything concrete away. In Montecito, these public winks did not go unnoticed. Sources close to the couple allegedly said the Parker remark was flagged internally, not because it revealed anything actionable, but because it hinted at something worse than what was already out there. The Family Guy quip was reportedly met with less alarm, more eye-rolling than panic, but still made its way into the Monitor Closely column on the internal watch list. For fans, though, the subtext was clear. The shows weren't scrambling to contain the leaks. They were enjoying the spectacle. If anything, they were leaning into it, confident that whatever was coming next would not only match the leaks in bite, but possibly outdo them. And in the meme economy, that confidence was contagious. Entire parody accounts began springing up overnight, mashing together South Park's rough animatic frames with Family Guy's storyboard sketches, imagining an animated crossover that would never actually happen but felt in spirit like it already had. But as these fan-made mashups went viral, the real thing, two separate episodes locked in and allegedly queued up, was about to collide with something far harder to control: the internet's ruthless appetite for turning every frame into a joke. The thing about a good leak is that it doesn't just sit there, it mutates. And once Trey Parker's "Wait till you see what didn't leak" and the Family Guy producer's "cutaway cardio" line hit the internet, the leaks stopped being static curiosities. They became raw material. In the hands of meme makers, editors, and parody account admins, those rough storyboard frames and grainy animatics took on a second life, one the couple had even less control over than the episodes themselves.
Well, it's an apartment, so.
Yes, an apartment palace, I know that. Lots of tiny palaces inside one big palace.
By the end of the week, TikTok was drowning in split-screen edits. On the left, South Park's alleged yacht scene, complete with Meghan's stand-in shouting for the camera crew while a seagull snatched her Privacy Tour sequel script. On the right, Family Guy's storyboard for the Royal Regretometer, its needle trembling violently as off-screen dialogue shouted "Netflix deal." The clips were timed to the same jaunty background track, turning what were originally two separate leaks into a seamless roast across universes. Instagram parody accounts went into overdrive. Duchess of Chardonnay, one of the better-known royal satire handles, posted a carousel of faux crossover stills, Cartman steering the as-ever yacht, while Stewie handed out pink rosé bottles, Brian manning the timeline regret device with Kyle watching. The captions wrote themselves: "Multiverse of mockery. Privacy Tour Extended Cut, double feature, double the damage. Twitter threads compiled every Easter egg from both alleged leaks, real or imagined. A blurry speck in the background of South Park's lifeboat scene, clearly a nod to the throne of mics from Family Guy's call sheet. The shape of the coastline in one wide shot, obviously meant to match the opening frame of a rumored Family Guy cutaway to a Malibu beach house. Whether these connections were intentional or just internet overreach didn't matter. Once enough people agreed they saw it, it became part of the narrative. Even YouTube creators who'd built their brands on deep dives and satire breakdowns were cashing in. Reaction videos dissecting the leaks pulled hundreds of thousands of views, each one slowing down the frames, zooming in on the props, overlaying them with past interview clips or press photos for context. The more the images were analyzed, the further they drifted from their original form, until the couple wasn't just dealing with 2 episodes, they were dealing with an entire cottage industry built on reinterpreting those episodes before they'd even aired.
Thanks. Okay, see you later. Oh, would you pick up some milk?
For critics of Meghan and Harry, this was vindication in meme form, a cultural event they could participate in, remix, and share without waiting for the networks. For supporters, it was exhausting. Some began openly pleading with people to stop giving this attention, but even that resistance became screenshot fodder for the next round of posts. And for neutral observers, the sheer scale of the online creativity was becoming the story. Articles with headlines like, "The leaks that launched 1,000 memes" framed the frenzy as less about the couple themselves and more about the speed with which internet culture can devour, remix, and weaponize any piece of pop culture. By now, the original leaks were almost secondary. The conversation had shifted to the bigger picture, what it means when satire jumps the fence from professional writers' rooms into the public's hands, where no PR team can issue a takedown and no one controls the punchline. And for Meghan and Harry, that was the most dangerous development of all, because the longer the memes kept rolling, the less it mattered what actually aired. The damage was already halfway done. But there was another calculation happening behind closed doors, one that had nothing to do with memes and everything to do with cold hard brand survival. For all the noise outside, what mattered inside Montecito wasn't just the next joke, it was the balance sheet. In that world, every spike in public attention comes with a question attached: is this good visibility or bad visibility? And more importantly, what's it going to cost us in the long run? The numbers, according to one source close to their circle, were already being tracked in real time. Search interest in Meghan and Harry's names had climbed sharply in the days since the leaks first surfaced. Social engagement, mentions, shares, tags was up as well. On paper, those are metrics most brands would kill for. But the sentiment analysis, the part that breaks down whether the attention is positive, neutral, or negative, was tilting heavily toward the red. Not just criticism, not just dislike, mockery, the kind of ridicule that is nearly impossible to spin back into prestige.
Why did you bring that with you again, Harry?
You know, in case someone wants a massage, I'll do a few outcalls.
Some of their current partners reportedly were willing to ride it out. A luxury skincare line tied to Meghan's lifestyle brand allegedly told their team they were comfortable with a little edge as long as the numbers stayed high. But the more traditional luxury players, think high-end fashion, heritage home goods, were said to be quietly evaluating their exposure clauses. These are the small print escape hatches that allow brands to step back from an ambassador if public perception shifts too far into the negative. And it wasn't just about existing contracts. Future deals could be even trickier. A big-ticket wellness partnership Meghan's team had been cultivating for months was now, according to whispers, in a holding pattern until after both episodes aired. In the cautious world of luxury PR, no one wants to tie their launch to a week when the face of their campaign might be getting memed across 2 separate primetime animated shows. The couple's defenders inside Montecito tried to frame it as temporary heat, arguing that interest, even in the form of satire, keeps them culturally relevant. And in the short term, that's true. Satire can keep a name in circulation long after a normal press cycle would fade. But the deeper concern wasn't whether people were talking about them now, it was what they'd be saying 6 months from now. Would Meghan Markle still bring to mind philanthropy, advocacy, and entrepreneurial ambition? Or would it trigger an instant mental image of an animated yacht bobbing in the waves and a cartoon coffee mug labeled Prince of Wine? In high-end branding, aspiration is currency.
So all you'd have to do is Instagram yourselves using my ketchup. It'd be a huge help.
I see. Well, that's something we'll definitely think about.
And once a brand is cemented as the butt of a joke, that currency starts to devalue fast. Even a well-crafted PR push can struggle to overcome a viral caricature, especially when that caricature is getting primetime exposure on 2 networks within weeks of each other. One Montecito insider allegedly summed it up bluntly in a private conversation. It's not about whether we take a hit, it's about whether we can still climb back up the same ladder. And for all the optimism some on the team projected publicly, in private, the math didn't look great, which is why the rumored final twist in this saga might be the cruelest of all. Because if the timing chatter is right, Family Guy's roast might not be the closing act. just the opening volley before South Park lands the last word. By the end of the month, the speculation wasn't about leaks anymore. It was about clocks, 2 of them ticking down on opposite sides of the internet. On one subreddit dedicated to South Park, the top post for a week straight was a fan-made timer set to the rumored special episode slot. Meanwhile, over in a Family Guy meme group, a different clock was counting toward the air date fans believed matched the call sheet's production timeline. The dates were close enough to feel connected, but just far enough apart to suggest 2 distinct detonations.
Who's that?
That's your nephew, Archie.
You're pulling my leg. Why have we not met before?
You've met him like 1,000 times.
And then came the twist that set both fandoms on fire. Chatter that Family Guy might actually land first. It wasn't just wishful thinking. It came from a pattern some fans swore they'd spotted in the show's production-to-air pipeline. If that theory was right, the Royal Regretometer, the throne of mics, and the timeline regret device could be on screens before South Park's yacht had even left the animated harbor. The image of Stewie smirking in one episode and Cartman cackling in another, separated by only a week or 2, was irresistible to meme makers and devastating to anyone hoping the first roast would fade before the next arrived. In Montecito, this double countdown was reportedly the hardest pill to swallow. It meant no recovery window, no time for a charity appearance or a lifestyle brand drop to reset the narrative.
Yeah, we're hoping the ketchups and mustards are going to be sold at Whole Foods, which, would be huge. Oh, and they're all organic in case anyone was wondering.
We weren't.
If anything, the Family Guy episode could prime the audience, warming them up with sharp, quick cutaways, so that when South Park's longer, more theatrical roast aired, the audience would already be in on the joke. The risk wasn't just being roasted twice, it was being locked into a role, a caricature, across multiple cultural touchstones in quick succession. For the shows, though, the staggered schedule was perfect. Each could ride the other's wave without competing for the same night's headlines. Family Guy would get the first burst of attention. South Park could sweep in later and claim the last word. Whether by accident or design, it was the kind of timing that turns 2 separate productions into what feels like a coordinated strike.
Andy, you gotta be kidding me. I've brought plenty of conflict to the show.
I'm sorry, Meghan. It's just not working out. All you talked about all season was your line of ketchup.
Fans treated it like an event. Some even started calling it the double feature. TikToks imagined fake trailers for an animated crossover event. Twitter threads debated which show would be harsher, which jokes would stick, and whether the couple's team would dare to respond between episodes or hold everything until after both aired. The consensus? Silence might be the only safe play, but it would also be read as surrender. And that's where the stakes landed. Once both episodes aired, the narrative might be out of their hands for good. They could try to reframe, to launch new projects, to pivot into a fresh chapter. But if the culture decided that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry were animated punchlines first and public figures second, that frame could be hard to break.
And please stop sending me samples.
I hear you, Andy. I'll amp it up. I'll smash a wine glass. I'll tell Kyle she has Munchausen syndrome. I'll accuse Dorit of doing coke.
It left one final question hanging in the air, a question the couple couldn't control, the fandom couldn't answer, and the creators had no incentive to soften. Once satire cements you as a recurring character, can you ever really rewrite your role? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video on your screen is waiting, and trust me, you won't believe what's coming next.